Ladies and gentlemen, we're still here on the third floor. The food is already gone. Appreciate it. Miss Guinea, what does that, how does that help your country? I want to know. Miss Guinea. What's the economic implication?
Sorry?
He's not Miss Guinea. Miss Guinea.
I'm not Miss Guinea.
I'm sorry. How you doing?
I'm good, how are you?
So are you a Guinean American or just a Guinean?
Guinean American.
Guinean American. So how did you become Miss Guinea?
It's an interview.
Well, I mean, I was just curious, wondering.
There's a competition. First they select girls from each state, and then each state you win and you go to the competition. You have to have some humanitarian project as well.
All right.
They basically decide based on that and your performance at the competition.
All right.
To decide who's the winner.
Which year was that? This year or last year?
Yeah, just December 24th.
Really? Last year? Just passed?
Yeah.
So that's recent?
Yeah.
Wow, new Miss Guinea.
Yeah.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you so much.
So how many people competed in the competition? How many people competed?
In total, in the final
Contestants? Yeah.
there were about 10 contestants. There was an elimination process.
How many was the pool? How many?
There was a lot because you have to go through state first.
Right.
And then
the entire US.
USA, yeah.
Oh, okay, all right. What's your name again?
Khadija, Kadietu.
Huh?
Kadietu.
Kadietu?
Yeah, Kadietu.
Hanisha?
Kadietu or Khadija?
Kadietu, Kadisha. Thank you so much. Enjoy your time.
Can you write about that, your experience? I know you write about it. Yeah. I mean, of course I have.
But the idea is that you have to have a community-based fight because the key to everything is to be able to do what the governor said, get your story out.
I'm sorry, sir. Can I ask a question here? Because I was disappointed. Most of the question wasn't strong enough for the governor. I felt that the greater issue in the country called Nigeria is the issue of security. Boko Haram is bombing every day. Nobody was actually stressing that issue. And the issue about money given to Kanu first, why they have been bombing in the country for the past 6 months. Nothing was given to them. It was after the pressure and criticism that he now gave to 5 million to Mandela bombing. So I wanted to hear something from you guys. Nobody was even raising that. And we raised our hands to ask questions. Nobody was allowing or giving us the chance to ask questions. I mean, the speech was great. You know, he's an intellectual. He's intelligent. He said the right things. But the question is, what is on the ground does not apply.
Let me interject one point.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
You got to remember.
By the way, what's your name? What's your name?
Mel Brown.
Brown.
Yes, I'm Mel Brown.
Mel Brown. Okay.
I'm with Pop World, and I work with the African diaspora here in Harlem.
Okay.
One of the things I want to interject, you got to remember that you're talking to a central banker.
Okay.
One of the key things that he could address around this issue of the domestic insurgency is the whole question of where did they get their money from.
Exactly.
Okay? Now, this is the thing. There's only so much he can say. Because you got to remember, even within government, he has issues with some of the people who are sponsors or use Boko Haram as proxies. So
yeah, actually, he was accused of one of the sponsors.
But the thing that's important is this.
He just told me that why would he be part of a sponsor of Boko Haram?
Remember,
which he denied. Go ahead.
Coming to an American and a diaspora audience.
Okay.
And you want to be able to give them, as a person who's a spokesman for a very powerful institution, you want to give them, yourselves and myself, the tools in order to fill in the blanks. He can't say everything. He can't put everything on the table.
But the diasporas are not ignorant of what is happening back on the ground.
Let me come in.
Yes, sir.
He talks about so many things, and one of the key things I remember I mentioned about the power of the civil society.
Yeah, I like that too. I like that part.
I mean, you can't question him about security that much. He only he specializes on what he knows best, which is the economic development of Africa, the issue affecting Africa. I mean, we can't ignore security.
No, you can't. The infrastructure.
But at the same time, he was able to touch on the key thing that's going to affect the African as a whole. So he talks about
Africa is too large to focus on just Africa. You should return to the regions. You talk about Africa as if it's one state. It's a continent. So it's too big for you to say you are addressing the issue of Africa. Who are you to address the issue of Africa? Nation states within the continent has to address the issues on the state level.
This is what you do.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
We know how complex that is.
Exactly.
We know how complex it is.
It's like saying you want to address the issue of Europe.
But wait a minute. He's talking to an audience. It's very, very clever. That can fill in the gaps.
Right, but you asked me a question today. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Let me finish the point.
Go ahead.
It's very, very important. They have a job to do once they finish a speech.
Okay.
Nothing happens just on the basis of a speech. We've seen that with Obama.
Right. There you go. Absolutely.
He's a great speaker. But he does not. One of the most important and one of the most robust sectors of the world economy, Africa, he does not have a strategic doctrine on.
At all.
Africa. Okay? So, the diaspora fills in the gaps.
How? What do you mean filling in the gaps?
Brainstorm, for example.
Brainstorm, okay.
One of the reasons,
like what we just did.
One of the reasons why I'm here and spending so much time in Colombia is because we'd like to be able to introduce the African diaspora to the best minds within the diaspora.
I'm listening.
Okay? So that when the IMF, the World Bank, or any other international financial institutions make recommendations to African governments or regional bodies, that there is a core, we call it a dream team of scholars at university, graduate and undergraduate students who can crunch the numbers, analyze the details, coming from prestigious institutions of higher learning, and test and analyze and critique these recommendations coming from these world bodies in a fashion that sometimes the intellectual core back in the region can't do on the same level with the same kind of cachet. And what we want to do is to be able to have enough information from the governor to be able for these people to do the work and get these kinds of leadership capabilities in place so that they can do here, close to power, like the Congress, the United States Congress, some of the think tanks, some of the leading think tanks, some of the leading avenues of learning, such as Columbia University, to be able to give some pushback. To reshape the image of Africa.
Let me ask you one question.
The image of Nigeria for the public to understand why, the American public, to understand why Nigeria is so important.
Do you realize that what you call Nigeria is hugely divided?
No, wait.
Do you realize that you have Boko Haram asking for Islamic State? Do you realize that the Biafrans want to restore Biafra after the Civil War? Do you realize that the Yoruba want Odua State? And we're trying to paint, gloss over it as if nothing happened. 3.5 million difference were killed in the Civil War, 1967 to 1970, and we can't pretend that it never happened.
Right. Well, this is
until we have sovereign national conference, people will remain bitter about what happened in the past. Yes, it's always good to talk about diaspora and putting good image. Good image is not enough. Rhetoric is not enough. But what is on the ground speaks differently.
But see, there are two things that I would suggest too.
Okay, go ahead.
You get people coming that have expertise in an economic forum such as this.
Right. Okay.
All right. Then you have a forum that's devoted to security and military issues. Then you have that here.
Yeah, but
and then that's when you ask those kinds of questions.
Yeah, but you can't discuss economic forum without security.
Yeah, but to see that
it can't work without security.
I understand what your point is, but you got to remember he is specifically have an agenda to focus on. So he's going to do that.
Right.
But my
argument is that you cannot discuss economics without security.
But I understand. I understand that.
You can't discuss economics without security.
You got to remember.
I'm listening.
Security is only one of many risk factors.
That's right.
There's also currency risk factors.
Currency risk factor, yes.
There are issues relating to infrastructure.
Okay.
Go down the list of all these security risks. Investment risk.
Okay.
Security is just high on the list because you've got a domestic insurgency. It's very active and deadly, lethal. Okay.
Yeah, lethal.
So I understand that.
Okay.
So, but that's the forum. That's the question. When do they do a forum on security and military issues?
Exactly.
That's what they do. Now the people. Let me finish this one point. The people who sponsored this, they should huddle with some of their friends at Columbia University.
I warned them.
But hold on.
Listen. Go ahead.
Yeah, but the idea is that they turn around and get people to respond and say, listen, when you're going to have a forum entirely devoted to security issues?
Security.
Because we are concerned about that. And enough people ask about that, it'll happen. That's what you're here for.
So we have to wait until enough people ask for it?
No, not. You're going to lobby for it.
Okay, lobby for it.
You're going to get the business cards of the people who sponsored this.
Okay, all right.
And you're going to turn around and say, oh, okay.
I know that this is my first. I told him and I advised them.
Yeah.
They said they tried to put it, but it was they didn't find people to speak on it.
Okay.
I said we're here to speak on it.
This is what you do.
Yes, sir.
You've got colleagues.
Yes.
Who think like you do.
Yes, sir.
Who are they see the headline.
Passionate. That's right.
Yeah. About security and military doctrine issues.
Okay.
All right.
Right.
Nigeria has yet to really do a full examination of how the war on terror relates to them.
Okay.
They do tactics based upon what has been cooked up in Washington and in London. Okay. Which relates to a tradition based upon what happened before these states were independent. So how are you going to model your security based upon a doctrine based upon colonialism?
Now you hitting the point I was coming where I was trying to hit.
So you intellectuals,
no, you are intellectual too. You are scholars. I can hear you
scholars and thinkers and universities such as Columbia University who want to get that story out and want it fully analyzed so that there's a Nigerian doctrine or West African doctrine on the war on terror. Okay, so that's
what I want to hear. That's what I want to hear.
It took 5 years for Washington to figure out what they had to do to reshape the intelligence, the military, and community in order to deal with this new threat that caught them totally off guard in 2001. Okay? It took them 5 years. You can't have 5 years to do that. You know what I'm saying? So you turn around and say, listen, the key issue is the fact that we have to train our people, our security forces and our military forces, in a doctrine that's appropriate for the kind of war on terrorism that we have, not the war on terrorism that Washington or London
that we have,
or Paris have.
Different paradigm. Yeah.
The war on terrorism for Washington is not the same war on terrorism for Abuja.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying?
You're right.
So you have to have those intellectuals and those thinkers, such as in the diaspora, to be able to discuss those kinds of issues. That's what Washington did. Washington said, you know what? In 2005 and 2006, they said, you know what? We're clueless. We made some serious mistakes. We don't want to share as many mistakes that we had with the general public, American public, we made some serious mistakes. We were totally caught off guard. How was it that we took it repeated? What they did was they had a series of discussions led by one of the top think tanks, okay, to be able to put that together in 2006, okay, and they just brainstormed, put a lot of money into these intellectuals coming up with a re-examination of Pentagon policy from top to bottom. That's what Nigeria has to do at the Nigeria Institute for International Affairs, the AIIA, okay? They have to do that. They have to get the leading intellectuals in this field in the same room and just brainstorm out in over a period of like 2 days. And have research papers come and generate out of this, fund them, and then discuss with the general staff and the security officials. And they'll come up with something. Now, they got to also explain this. You got to remember, the Nigerian press is very argumentative. Sometimes they
How do you know that? How do you know that?
I read it every day, at least 10 to 15 papers every day. And I'm looking and I'm seeing some of the mistakes that they're making which are counterproductive. All right? They're putting a lot of heat on elected officials. But the idea is you got to really search out people who have some solutions. And it's not just commentary. People who are doing serious research, got serious papers that are highly recognized by people in their field, in and outside of the region. Okay? And then I see of all of the research that I have hundreds of such analyst reports saved on my computer. Okay? But the idea is that so few of them are Nigerian scholars. We got to deal with that. You cannot allow and rely upon American scholars to tell your Nigerian story.
That's why I believe that they're not free. Freedom has to be, your security ingenuity has to be indigenously driven. Your nationalism has to be indigenously driven. When you keep running to Washington, it makes me cry. I'm like, these people are stupid. They're ignorant. How are you going to be coming to Washington who is actually dealing with his own security issues to compare to come and deal with their own issues? They brought the CIA, FBI to come and investigate their bombing of UN building. To me, that's stupid. That's mundane. There's no way you can bring the US intelligence to investigate their own local issues.
Well, this is what you do. What you do is like everything else. You got to be flexible. You know how a jazz musician
What do you mean by being flexible? What do you mean?
You know how a jazz musician plays?
Yeah, tell me.
The jazz musician structures a piece with a melody line and a rhythmic line that he wants to follow throughout the entire ensemble. But he allows for a lot of room of improvisation. Because when you hear something good that your drummer is playing, you says, oh, I didn't write that down. But
I like
that sounds good. Let me explore that. And the same thing with some of the horn players. And it becomes an art form which is rooted in a live performance and interaction. And sometimes a competition. Yeah, but the idea is that you're putting a lot of ingredients and inspiration into the players. And it's happening for the audience, in which the audience gets caught up in the fact that this is something where they're witnessing creation right in front of them.
So back to security. How do you link that to security?
Now the link on the security is this. We've got a situation right now where we've seen serious mistakes that the security authorities made in the early part of last year.
Serious bombing almost every day.
Okay. What happened was this. Some of the recommendations that they later followed, it took them almost about a year to do, is to be able to adopt some of the tactics that were already commonplace by the NYPD, by the security services in Britain. One of the things that Britain is doing is they're revving up a lot of their security capabilities because of the Olympics coming up in the summer. So what you're talking about is a situation where you examine what you're faced with right on the ground, so that you can adapt your theories to those circumstances and not try to adapt your interpretation of the circumstances to your dynamics that you got somewhere else.
That's why I think that they're ignorant. That's why I believe.
What you do is this. Rather than call them ignorant, you say, listen, you play a polemical, but just like what he was talking about with competition, you have an alternative voice that competes with these bankrupt ideas that is driving the security apparatus and the kind of tactics and strategies that they formulate. That's That's what you do.
The president himself, Jonathan, accused his own government that his government has been infiltrated by Boko Haram agents. In other words, some military personnel, some police personnel, SSA personnel are Boko Haram members within the government. So how do you handle that? What do you do?
Well, this is what you do. You got to be very clever. There are certain people that you can go after, some of these criminal elements.
He doesn't arrest them? He said that he knows them, or he doesn't arrest them?
Well, so you got to remember this.
It doesn't make sense.
Well, wait a minute.
Maybe it's
Hold on.
to secure, to make people comfortable, in the sense that a lot of these security issues, we don't know the nature.
We are losing life every day. They're bombing every day. Multiple bombings every day. Losing lives and property worth billions of dollars, if not millions, or if not billions of dollars. So that's the situation we're facing here. And like he mentioned, Mr. Mel, okay, like we mentioned, the security dynamics or problem in the US is quite different from security challenges in Nigeria or Britain. They're all different dynamics. Is that right? So why would you come here to bring FBI and CIA to come and investigate your bombing in Abuja? That's why I say it's stupid.
As long as they don't play a frontline role, that's important. You can have advisors that come in from almost anywhere.
You can see them in pictures.
You can have United States come into a particular. They did it everywhere, and they won't be in front line. Let me tell you, see, all this political thing is more. I mean, I've had more energy today. The keynote speaker was inspiring, and a take-home point for me, it's the deal now. I'm not here to question him or what the conversation is going on, but what's the follow-up? Like you once said, what's the follow-up after this conversation? After this,
what's the follow-up?
What's the follow-up?
What do we do? What do we do?
Getting this that you are we getting this that you recording? How are we going to get it to millions of people who will open their mind and who will be like, who will be fascinated with the story? Like, wow, we need to tell our stories. We need to get our stories by our own self. We have not been good in documenting our stories. Even the way he's doing now is documenting it. But how many people will get to see this? That's the question. I mean, he's one of the most important people here. Carl, right?
Yeah, yes.
One of the most important people here. We all come to inspire, but he comes to get inspiration and he's documenting it. So we didn't document, we only document through our mind and through our head. But he's documenting. How are we going to get this across to the masses?
We're using our Facebook. We're using our Facebook, our Twitter, our YouTube, and our website. We're using all means that we have, and online groups lists.
More events like this.
More events like this.
But see, the point that people.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. The people will measure how many hits you get, and they say, well, okay, this was a segment that was the after forum, in which there was discussion about some of the security issues. And people say, oh, that got a few thousand hits. It's time to have something related to a forum devoted to that issue. And some of these people.
But my problem is really, in saying all this, you have to know which population you're tackling, because a lot of times we're talking about the intelligentsia, people who are interested even by the words security, this. But today in the discussion, my hope was to hear how all this plays out to the civil society. The person who's not trained to be that woman who's qualified at the clearance level, like you were saying, to make a change for women to be, into jobs.
Absolutely.
The person who's in the rural area who's not trained, how can you tell me they are included in this whole thing? The same way right now, we're talking about, how mobilization is happening and then who we are mobilizing and who's
mobilizing
who hits the key, because as an intellectual I might go in this thing 5 times just to see who's discussing more, but does that mean technically that you have mobilized a group of people about this issue?
Not really.
No. By writing long words, security this, security that, does that mean we really have touch on the right audience?
So what's your opinion? What's your opinion?
My opinion as a social scientist, we can't hit everybody. Technically, everything counts. One person counts.
That's right.
If this mobilizes 3 people, because that's what you could have gathered, so let's hope in that 3 people they spread the word continuously. So that we have the qualitative approach and the quantitative approach, which is by chance. We put it on Facebook. Hopefully 2 or 3 of us watch it. And as we finish the discussion here,
you can pass it on to another group.
I pass it on to a person. We say, hey, you say hi, go do this, you know. So
should keep talking.
Yeah. So mobilize one person more
at a time. One at a time.
It's not even about like how many hates we're gonna get, but one more person. Because civil society, when they come in, that's really when changes can happen. Everything else at the superstructure level
doesn't mean nothing. Doesn't mean much.
It's almost like superstructure level is almost the difference between physical and divinity, and spiritual. And divinity. You're getting what you want to satisfy the wants and
higher picture
and higher
picture, higher level.
But we want to see what the wants and the needs exist
now.
So so it's you and I, all that type of stuff. I mean, today in what the governor spoke about, my hope was really to see the bigger picture of the civil society. I understand he's trained banker, he's an economist probably, so many things remain structurally based. At the end when he was answering the question, I saw the notion of how the need for civil society really makes everything change. Our politician needs to emphasize on that. You get involved. Because people in Africa tend to see that I can't be involved because the father government is taking care of everything. We need to tell the civil society, for us to fight corruption, it starts from you, because that message, like, you could do it too. They did it too. It's affecting all of us. So civil society, civil society,
that's the key.
Civil society,
ladies and gentlemen, civil society is the key.
Yeah.
We should get into conversation. Keep talking. How are you doing, Amanda? How are you?
I'm well.
I know you've been listening patiently. Thank you for your patience. You can hear this gentleman talking about civil society and issue of security. Kwame Nkrumah in the 60s talk about Pan-Africanism. Trying to build what they call African Command. Because without security, we can't go anywhere. America is leading NATO. Look what they did in Libya. To me, I was ashamed that a nation would fly their planes and bomb a sovereign nation, a sovereign state. I was ashamed. No matter what Gaddafi did, it would have been within the fulcrum of the continent or the African Command to deal with that issue, not by a foreign nation.
I think the main point is, like Shakman said here, it really is about understanding how we come together as a society. And I think when you try and take it from too high of a dimension, we try and look at society as a whole as opposed to the individual within it, you lose the idea of how to interact with people and how to get the word across. So it really is about understanding individuals and what their understanding of society is, and really getting across the message to each individual on that basis, so we can make a bigger society from the message individually, so from people sharing it between one another. So I think really is about understanding the individual person's needs, their understanding of what society has for them, and what we need to do as individuals to make society, work together and to raise the issues that the gentleman was speaking about.
So we should keep having the conversation.
I think conversation with action plans. I think conversation in its own right doesn't move anywhere. I think conversations with action plans. So today, for example, as the gentleman speaking, if we took down action plans to what then needs to be done, then we could have moved somewhere. But as it is now, people are asking what's going to happen next. I think that's the issue. There's no action after the conversation.
Thank you so much. Gentlemen, thank you so much. I appreciate it. I hope you guys are going to be here tomorrow.
Yes.
Well, Aroma should be speaking again on security exchange, what they call it over there. I don't know if they have the again. It takes me back to infrastructure. You cannot build. You cannot go to when I launch satellite. When you have no roads, you have no infrastructure. All right, and then the satellite is being launched from Russia, Moscow, or in China, Beijing. And then it makes me, I go crazy. How can you control your satellite by the Chinese government in Beijing or in Moscow, Soviet Union, or current Russia, and then to tell you what is happening in their satellite, and you pay billions to launch a satellite? It's stupid. But it doesn't make sense. How do you launch satellite from Russia to control that of the Nigerian airspace?
For me, I don't know anything.
Well, he said there was a satellite launch, and it's being controlled in China.
I'm going to go to a totally overall topic. Because I don't know anything.
Well, but I just said it. Yeah. But you don't know anything. I just said it.
I'm not going to speak about that topic, but I'm going to give an insight of me, someone who doesn't know anything.
Okay.
Trying to, we have to know what we want. Because Africa wants revolution. For me, as an African, I'm going to call myself an African citizen. Right? I don't think being a an existing form of readiness for any notion of revolution. We have to know what we want. Right now, capitalism exists, is existing, and is existing while we are a part of it. We have to know now. Maybe historically, this notion of state, it doesn't make sense for us. Let's talk about it. But this notion of revolution, people, we are too hungry right now. Like, for me, for someone who doesn't know anything, just give people at least 20%, something back, so people can be fed. Come on.
Food, shelter,
come on,
housing, okay, accommodation.
As the son of Africa, I know I'm not ready to stand for any revolution right now, but I want to see a generation of my people being fed. Shame to be removed from people. Like, that's all I'll bring on the table if they ever ask me. If you're getting 100% or 10,000%, just give people,
give something back,
even 1%, even just 1%. Get it back to the people so people can be fed.
Like good roads, water, electricity, shelter, housing, and food.
So at least the human dignity exists.
Human dignity.
That's all.
All right. Thank you so much.
I'm asking all my brothers to know what we want. Because if it's a revolution, we don't have that because we're not together yet. Come on. But for me, if I ask anything for the Congo where I'm from, or even for any other country, please give people at least 1%, man. Come on. Like 1%. So people can feel like human. Come on.
Feel like human being. Human dignity. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. What's your name again, brother?
Isaac Katalaye.
Isaac Katalaye, Congo. In the African Economic Forum, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. We'll be here tomorrow to continue the report, and we thank you so much for speaking to us. Thank you, Arif. Thank you so much. The brother from Congo. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, report reporters. We're done for the day, and we'll be signing off, and we hope this made a great day. Thank you so much. Thank you.